The captain is dead. The mantle of power has passed to the people. Democracy is born, and you, steward, shall guide us. He saved the city, and without him now it is crumbling. It must not fall.
Frostpunk 2 is here, and oh my god, it is incredible. Back to the mines, children! Pardon me. 11-Bit Studios' long-awaited sequel is finally out, and I could not be happier. Let's talk about it. Much like the original Frostpunk, Frostpunk 2 is also a game about managing the collection and allocation of resources, and the well-being of the people of New London. Where Frostpunk 1 is all about managing the micro, scheduling individual people for shifts, determining the exact placement of buildings around heat zones, worrying about the hope and discontent and resources of a single united people in one city. Frostpunk 2 has you managing the macro. You don't schedule individual people, you schedule hundreds to thousands of people. You don't place buildings, but rather entire districts. And within those districts, you can place special buildings that grant additional abilities. You don't worry about the happiness and trust of a united New London, but rather the happiness of several factions within the recently fractured and freed peoples of New London. The captain made all the decisions in the first game. The man, for all the good he did, was a dictator. And his death sparks the renaissance of democracy within New London. You are not the captain. You are the steward. You don't sign laws. You propose them for delegates of political parties of the city to vote on. You can influence the votes and improve your relationships with the factions by making backdoor deals with the delegates to propose certain laws or pursue certain technological paths, which, oh, by the way, the political parties also care about which type of coal mining you use, how your children are raised, how the Frostland is explored, etc. The short version is that managing your relationship with the peoples of New London is not only much harder this time around, it is also the main focus of this game. Lastly, in Frostpunk 2, you aren't just managing one city, but also some smaller colonies that you can construct, one of which should ring some alarm bells.
No! 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 Hell no! No! No!
So essentially, everything the first game did, Frostpunk 2 expands on by proposing some questions that it addresses through its gameplay. What if New London wasn't a dictatorship? Instead of it being a city of 500 to 600 people, what if it was a city of tens of thousands? Have you considered what the people think about the cultural zeitgeist of your city based on the laws that you have passed as well as the industrial and cultural practices that you have researched and instituted? Have you pondered these? There's a lot more to think about in this game. Rather than just surviving, you are trying to live. You must maintain and improve New London for as many people as you can, while also ensuring there are enough resources for everyone to live. However, it is rarely possible to please everyone, and tensions will form not only between you and the factions, but between the factions themselves. Civil war occurs in this game, and it is up to you to defuse the situation in whatever way you can, some ways more humane than others.
Oh no! Oh no!
The gameplay of Frostpunk 2 grows and changes as the story progresses through each of the story's chapters. Rather than different scenarios like Frostpunk 1, Frostpunk 2 tells the ongoing story of New London. And the different scenarios of Frostpunk 2 are different situations that New London has to deal with in chronological order, with all of your political and building choices being carried over between chapters. It's awesome. There's only one scenario really that's separate from New London, and that's Chapter 1, which is a prologue, which takes place at a settlement which you end up colonizing later as New London. To complete my first run of the story, after failing my first true run, it took me 18 hours. Which, considering that I only completed one of the many endings of the Order story pathway, means that this game has significant replayability. In the first chapter of the game, you get to choose whether New London was driven by faith or order in the first game. Whatever choice you make opens up many different story elements, making the choice in the first game have more weight to it, which is something that I am happy about, and it is a complaint that I had about the first game. Probably the only complaint I had about the first game, to be honest. Obviously, those two choices are not that different in terms of what they aim to accomplish. It's the how that is different, as well as the kinds of people that how creates, which is what is explored here in Frostpunk 2, which is genius. I have to bring up the user interface in this video because boy did 11-bit studios hear all the criticism about the first game's UI being too clunky and in the way, because they responded by making the cleanest UI I have ever seen. Look at this. 11-bit, you have earned your mic drop. I would encourage you to do it. UIs are an art form. I personally didn't mind the first game's UI, but this game's UI has made me look at other games' UI in disgust. This UI is done perfectly. Less is more, and with the UI being out of the way, we get to look at what matters. The city. Minimalism is usually the way to go. Eliminating the superfluous allows you to highlight what matters. It's an oddly beautiful thing considering what the story is about, and the game is better for it. The story of Frostpunk 2 begins 30 years after the first game with the death of the captain, your character in the first game. It's clear that in his old age, the city managed to get out of his control, and in his dying moments, he laments the potential hell that will befall his city with him gone, as well as the emptiness of the world after the Great Frost. 30 years after which, the world continues to be an uninhabitable, hostile, frozen wasteland. You take the role of the steward, the one who has been chosen to fulfill the role of the captain with far less power than he had. Laws are put to a vote. Research paths will draw scrutiny that will lead to people joining factions that will vote against you. You are a guide, not a dictator. At least in the beginning. Much can change when the chaos befalls the city, and it will befall the city. This story is great, and because of how the faction and voting system works, there is a great well of potential for different ways the story can play out. The major plot points are the same, with the main objectives of each chapter being what they are, but the achieving of the objectives will be different each time, with what you vote into existence and the order thereof, changing it as you go. There are a lot of difficult choices made in this game, and I won't spoil them all here, there's so many, but I will spoil one, and it's going to be a major one. If you don't want to have this choice spoiled for you, skip ahead to this time. In Chapter 4, the biggest plot point happens. You revisit the fallen city of Winterhome. It is a wreck, a ghost of a city. Some people want to re-establish a colony there, and some want to strip the cursed place for parts to bolster New London. Both sides have a point, but both sides have problems. You have to make a choice. Personally, on my first run, I said, screw Winterhome, that place is a doomed, ill-fated, bad omen. The scenario in the first game was more than enough evidence of that fact. The less time spent there, the better. So, when the pilgrims approached me and said,
"Hey, we could pour a bunch of resources into Winterhome to build us a new home,"
I simply responded,
No.
no matter what decision you make, it will inspire discontent on a massive scale amongst the factions who wanted you to fulfill their dream for the Frostland. This is the biggest fork in the road of the story. It is a choice that has a larger meaning, not just on how the story will play out, but the gameplay as well. The small character vignettes return in Frostpunk 2, and I'm glad. The story of the father who ran out into the Great Storm to save his daughter was a highlight of the first game for me. These vignettes return and continue to be an amazing way to feel more connected to New London and its people as the city grows and changes. The story for the first game was the story of survival at all costs. The story of Frostpunk 2 is the battle against entropy in a world that has destroyed everything. It's brilliant. I think it's the perfect sequel. I love these games so much that I have started writing an outline for a potential TV series for these games. I think, if done right, it could be one of the most thought-provoking and enthralling series ever written. I have no grand delusions about being more than up to the task or anything like that. I just really want to write this thing, and if it's good, good. The story of this game and the story of the first game have just inspired me so much. I love the story in this game. It fucking rocks. I've mentioned that there are factions in Frostpunk 2. I think that this game does the idea of factions very well. because they aren't completely unreasonable in their beliefs. I found myself aligning with different factions on different beliefs about how I found myself aligning with different factions on different beliefs about how the city should be run. And I found myself turning to one of the factions that supported me the most in disbelief, seeing that they have some downright horrendous beliefs alongside their very reasonable ones. I really like how there are two sides to how the people of New London feel the city should be run, much like the first game. However, among these two sides there are normal people and the radicals, which are their own factions. In the Order playthrough, the normal people factions are the Frostlanders and the New Londoners, whose radical factions are the Pilgrims and the Stalwarts respectively. The New Londoners are more technologically oriented. They want to stick to the ways of doing things that saw New London through the Great Frost with the aid of the generator. They believe in mandated schooling for children and labor oversight to keep the workers in check. Makes sense. The Stalwarts agree with all of these policies, but they have a few more that the normal people wouldn't subscribe to, like manufacturing stimulants to make people work harder, and experimenting on living criminals as punishment for their crimes in order to further technological and/or medical research. These radical idea laws that you unlock by favoring one faction over another can get pretty wild.
Well, excuse.
So what am I trying to say here? Simply put, reasonable people join groups because they agree with them. People stay with groups because agreeing with them helps them in some way, or because they think that it contributes to some sort of good. And I think that is the missing ingredient in most factions in video games. The reasonable people. Frostpunk 2 gives you factions that have normal supporters and radicals. The normal supporters have all the reasonable ideas, and the radicals will of course agree with those ideas. But it's when the radicals get a little too much power that their true colors are revealed, suggesting policies that, if put into practice, would drive many of the normal supporters from their side of the aisle to the other side. I know in most apocalypse settings you have to have a bunch of lunatics to choose from, but in Frostpunk 2, reasonable people still exist. And not only that, they are the majority. 11-bit, you have earned a sizable amount of good job buds from me for your work on factions. The visuals of Frostpunk 2 are beautiful. The graphics in the gameplay are a big step up from the first game, which was already a great looking game. The art of Frostpunk 2 continues the stylized yet hyper-realistic, depressing art style from the first game that I love so much as well. Something else you'll see is that the time in Frostpunk 2 passes at a much faster pace, going day by day rather than minute by minute like the first game. Due to this, the animation of the city is everything happening at rapid speed, with lights being carried by people and automatons navigating the city very fast. A day's worth of movement happens in seconds. It is very cool to see. Also, seeing how small the individual buildings are shows the scale of the districts you build, and therefore the scale of New London as it grows and evolves. It's not only a great game to play, but it's also a great game to look at, which in combination with the UI being as minimal as it is a major win. Much like the first installment in this series, the sound design is incredible. The soundscape of the winds of the hellish Frostland, combined with the monotonous grinding of the ever-expanding industrial districts, combined with the sounds of people working, sucks you into the city of New London. It is incredible. And then, when you are so locked into the city, you get hit with a Steward. And you are suddenly wrenched from your management of the city, and you are reminded that the people are what you're doing this for, and you need to remember that they have needs. It's fucking brilliant. Also, the music. It is magnificent. Piotr Musial, so sorry if I said that wrong, I probably did, came back and killed it by making yet another perfect main menu theme. The entire soundtrack is perfect. It somehow conveys the feeling of the flame of hope being reignited and then extinguished over and over. It is a somber masterpiece. The story of Frostpunk 2 asks a very hard-hitting question. Isn't every utopia somebody else's dystopia? Which, first of all, holy shit. Second of all, on my first run through the game, I got the bad ending of the Order playthrough. When I saw the "maybe you're lying to yourself" text followed by that very question, I came to realize not only the sheer depths of my failure, but just how impossible my task was. I had tried so hard to please everyone that I had pleased nobody. I set out not to cross a line and play it safe, and in doing so, ended up having to cross lines in places I didn't consider upon first beginning my reign in New London. It is impossible to please everyone, and therefore the idea of a utopia is also impossible. Perception is reality, and the only way to have a utopia is if everyone agrees to how it's run. But in order to do that, you need to cross some lines. It's like the short story The Ones Who Walk Away from Amelas by Ursula Le Guin taught us. I probably said that wrong. Every utopia has a cost to be achieved, and it may be a cost that only a monster would pay. In the case of this short story, there is one unlucky small child who must endure endless torment, being kept in the dark, starved, as well as being unable to experience the splendor of the city of Amelas or just having a normal life. This poor child's torment allows for this perfect society to exist. It's a hyperbolic example for sure, but its message rings true. No matter how great a society seems, somebody will always get the short end of the stick. In Frostpunk 2, as well as in real life, somebody has to do the dangerous jobs. Somebody has to shovel the shit. Somebody will end up not getting what they want, because at the end of the day, to err is human. And as long as we are human, nothing will ever be perfect for everyone. The beauty of humanity lies in its imperfections, as does the horror of humanity. And the only way to have a utopia would be to remove imperfection. To really send this point home, Frostpunk 2 has an endless mode. And you know what it's called? Utopia Builder. I'm good. I'm alright? I'm fine. 11-Bit Studios has once again knocked it out of the park with Frostpunk 2. Complaints from the first game were addressed and improved, and the gameplay takes a different direction while still feeling like Frostpunk. Dare I say it, this may be one of the best sequels of all time. Is it worth your money? Get so unbelievably close. Closer. Yes. I highly recommend picking this game up if you are into grim storytelling and city builder games, because this game is a masterpiece. Much like the first installment, it is also an example to bring up in the video games as art discussion. It'll make you stressed, it'll make you think, and most importantly, it'll make you feel. Hello! Thank you so much for watching the video. It means the world. Have you played Frostpunk 2? Did you play the first one, or did you skip the first and jump to the second? What are your thoughts? Do you have a favorite faction from the second game? And did you ever get angry at a faction for messing up all your plans? I did. The fucking Pilgrims, dude.
Hell no! The fucking Cubs? Dude? Hell no! Like getting paid not a lot of money, dude?
The Frostlanders were on my team. They liked me a lot. It was just the Pilgrims who wanted to ruin everything I was trying to do, and therefore life for everybody else. Oh well. This game is incredible. Please play it. I gotta start up another run soon, because what I want to do is I want to do a run with every faction, and I just want to see how it ends. Anyways, with all that said, I'll sign off. Thank you again so much for watching the video. It truly means the most. Stay safe out there, and I will see you in the next video. Have a good one.